Who Wore It Better? Murders of Karlov Manor edition. Perhaps the first, perhaps the only, depending on what we get to before Thunder Junction takes over our brains.
Possibly.
But I definitely wanted to hit the guild leaders, who each have not two, but three treatments. And those are just the standard treatment, like we have for every card. And then they each have a dossier treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And is it the cityscape?
The Ravnica City treatment.
Ravnica City treatment, okay. Right, so the Ravnica City treatment actually debuted in the bonus sheet of March of the Machine.
Yeah, we got to see a couple of those.
Yeah, there was actually an Aurelia already, so she's getting two of those, and a Judith. So there are two Judiths and two...
and Jury.
Yeah, and Jury, who is not in the banner set. And there was a Niv-Mizzet. In any case, they kind of previewed this style or something really similar to it in the same fashion that we talked about the Ixalan gods, and they previewed those. I really like the way that bonus sheet served sort of like the, what was the third set of Time Spiral?
Oh,
Future Sight?
I think it was Future Sight.
Right, so they previewed all these mechanics that come out over the next couple of years and things that still have never actually made it into the game.
That's a good parallel, because we got to see this little, we got all these little cards that felt kind of random in the context of the set. We're like, oh, here's some Theros gods, here's some characters you recognize from Ravnica.
There's Tarkir treatments. We're going back to Tarkir next year, aren't we?
Are we?
I think so, and so we'll presumably get that treatment
possibly. Yeah, there were some that we had never seen, like the Ixalan gods got the coin treatment, some stuff that was a little different from some of what we saw. Some things that were familiar, like the we had already seen, like the Kaldheim treatment. I think there's a couple Ikoria creatures that had that very similar, like, illustrative
that was explicitly a comic book
like a comic book illusion.
But
this was a cool way to preview some stuff that we actually end up getting to see now in Ravnica, in Murders.
And I love this border style so much.
It's very pretty.
I sort of wish they had done a lot more with it rather than just these six, but that's okay.
I also like how they use the city style to show the dual color identity. For Aurelia, like you have the red on one side, the white on the other, and that follows through the city buildings.
I think they did that with the ones back in the
they did. I like that treatment.
It's great.
It's really good.
I love it, and that's not to get too off topic, but that's something that really bothers me with a lot of the treatments, including the one we're looking at here, the dossier. Now the dossier treatment does have some hint at the colors of the card. But some of the dossier cards that we may take a look at in a future video, they don't have the legend frame at the top, and so there's less of a color.
It's hard to see as easily at a glance. Like I was talking about this with somebody yesterday about we had mentioned too some of the Fallout frames, which we'll get into that later.
No, we might not get a chance. The Pit Boy, I hate the Pit Boy one.
I was showing another person who's less invested in it, and they were also agreed, like, oh wow, that is hard. I was like, what color do you think this is?
Right, and the Pit Boy ones everything looks like a green card. And if you hold them next to each other, you see, oh, there is this little frame on the outside, but it's not working.
Readily, like when I'm looking at cards in my hand, it's not as readily apparent as I would like it to be.
And in great contrast, this Ravnica City frame
beautiful execution.
Perfect.
It's aesthetically pleasing, it's functional, which is what we want on Magic cards.
So first we're looking at Aurelia here, and I've just said how much I love the Ravnica City frame. And I really don't care for the dossier frames in general
in
that
general,
much.
They're not my favorite. I don't hate them, but they're not doing a lot for me.
Yeah, they're a neat little flavor addition to the set. They're fine.
I think the one thing I really do like about them is that they use those little photo corners. Those little stickers you have to put on actual photos to like pin them into a scrapbook or into their files. I like that. That's my favorite feature. But out of these three, I think if we were going to choose who wore it best or who wore it better,
easily the city.
I think for me it's like definitely the city. I do actually like the standard printing.
I do too.
I like the very confrontational angle of Aurelia in that one, but for me it's definitely the city.
She gets great art in this set.
There's
also a red it's like the Faithless Looting type card for the set, and it's just got this superimposing Aurelia on it. And it's even something I considered for our top 5.
Yeah.
It's so effective. So yeah, she's great. And of these, but even if we took away the frames themselves, I still I love this Art Deco style behind the city frame. Oh, it's just beautiful. And pretty easy last place for me is the dossier in this case.
That one's gonna come in third.
Yeah, I don't understand the general style that they seem to go for with the dossier, not just for Aurelia, not just for the ones we're looking at today, but they're kind of a comic book, but I don't know what they're supposed to represent. Because, like, a dossier, I'd think maybe this is supposed to be, like, a sketchbook artist or something, but, like...
See, my impression of what these are is it's like a case file, and so this should be, like, a candid photo.
Okay.
Or something that somebody, we referenced that one photographer card from our top 5.
Yeah.
This should be one of those.
This is the kind of work those cameras produce.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff they should be taking pictures of. So I guess that's what this is.
That explanation, that headcanon does a lot for me appreciating these.
Yeah.
There's just some Ravnican camera technology that makes art like this.
That's what this looks like. Like, it just applies this filter to every photo it takes. That's the only setting.
Yep, cool. All right, I like it. So Aurelia wins round 1. Well... That Aurelia wins.
Yeah, Aurelia, yeah.
Who do we want to look at next?
Let's look at Lazav.
Lazav.
Wearer of Faces.
Yeah.
Now, this one's kind of tough, because again, like, visually, I love the city treatment. It's just stunning.
Yes.
Out of the 3 arts, though, like, if we're not necessarily looking at the card as a whole, I really like the dossier treatment on this one. I love this angle that we're seeing over this blurry figure.
The light,
the lighting,
blur.
Everything about this one was the most eye-catching to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've noticed in this set there are a fair number of cards that use a lot of orange, and it makes me realize how rarely we see orange in Magic cards.
That's true.
Because I feel like the guidance that either that is given to most artists or that they just inherently follow is put a lot of whatever color is in the card.
Yeah, we don't see a lot of these tones. Yeah. So it's very eye-catching and it's novel in a way we don't get to see frequently.
The other one I'm thinking of in this set is it's a black rare homicide investigator, I think. And it's got a lot of orange too.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that Lazav is half a black card, and that one is also a black card that has black foreground but orange background. And I don't know what that means. It means I like Halloween, I guess.
Yeah, it's a very striking highlight color. I like that a lot.
So I agree that I think the dossier art is the best, most eye-catching of these. The whole package that works the best is the city frame probably, but it's close.
Yeah, I was thinking about how challenging it is to show Lazav, because we don't really get to see his face. He's kind of always shown in shadow.
That's his thing, right? Yeah.
That's kind of his thing, that he can...
He is the wearer of faces.
Exactly, that he can become a copy of other creatures, so he's always kind of shown half-shadowed, and I think that's partly why the cityscape art doesn't grab me as much. There's something very flat about it.
That's true.
That the dossier version...
Yeah, it
really
captures
excels.
personality.
Yeah,
and
it captures more of...
Sort of a menace, but also it is very demure.
It's intriguing.
Yeah, it is. It's intriguing and menacing. But and I kind of feel bad not calling out the standard art for being just a really high quality fantasy portrait.
Yeah, this is just some really solid fantasy art.
Yeah, but it doesn't stand out in the set that's full of high quality fantasy art by high quality professional artists. All right. Do we have a clear winner in that case?
I think for me it's going to be the dossier one, because I really like the art.
Fair. I will agree with that. All right. Who do you want to choose next for the remaining 4?
Let's look at Trostani.
Okay.
Grey Whispers.
Selesnya. Yep.
This one's interesting. So I really like the standard art for this, but I also like how the cityscape version shows them facing in different directions, which I think is a little more thematic.
Yeah, for this set.
Yeah.
The standard art, clearly I see that they are 3 parts of a whole. And I don't see that at all in the dossier. They could just be sitting next to each other.
They look like they're just three women sitting next, like very close to each other.
Yeah, they do. With just like burlap skirts on or something like that.
So yeah, I don't get the sense of them being part of a unified organism.
Yeah, I also get kind of a unicorn vibe from the two outside ones.
A little bit.
And everyone's very kind of meek and non-threatening.
Yeah.
Whereas, I mean, typically Trostani doesn't... Threatening isn't quite the right word, but they certainly have the capacity to be threatening.
I think they should be a little awe-inspiring, and I don't get that from this depiction, which, I mean, you know, these characters can have facets, like maybe...
When you say this, which one do you mean?
The
dossier?
The dossier version.
Yeah.
Sorry. I mean, they can certainly have different facets, like maybe we're seeing a quiet moment with just the three of them, but I do feel like they should... be a little awe-inspiring in the sense of their power, that like we're not meant to be immediately afraid of them, but we should be respectful, kind of in the way you are around like a really large animal.
Or Galadriel.
Or Galadriel.
That vibe,
she should have that vibe that like she's not immediately menacing, but we should get a sense of her power and kind of understand, and like,
that's
I don't
the
really...
exact vibe I get from the previous Trostani cards from the other sets. She's very regal, aloof, powerful,
very Galadriel,
graceful, and I get that definitely from just the standard art here. I mean, it's a slightly different mood. Her character in this set is substantially different.
Yes,
this is more at home.
Yeah, it does feel a little domestic. I like the use of shadow in this piece.
Oh, is
and
it?
I like that we can see...
Is the shadow foreshadowing?
Perhaps. I like also that we can see the roots and branches here. Like, they're more clear. I think they are most clearly a dryad in this depiction of these three.
Right. Yeah. And then we have the city art, which I like all the city arts, but I'm on the fence between just liking this style.
Yeah. I have to keep checking in with myself, like, am I choosing this just because I really like the style, or do I legitimately think this is the best one?
And if Art Deco was just the normal Magic style, it'd be kind of boring to see yet another Art Deco card.
Exactly,
there's early Quentin Hoover art, and then there's, like, nothing for a very long time, and then there's that occasional Art Deco representation, and then when it pops up, I love it.
Is it the Vesuvian Doppelganger?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one really stands out in my mind.
Yeah. That Regeneration and a few others from the early days.
Yeah, I think for this one, I'm going to have to choose just the standard art. I like this.
I think you're right with a real close second from the cities.
Yeah, I also just noticed that in the text box on the cityscape, there is this little brick pattern.
Yeah. It's the Selesnya brick pattern.
Yeah, right? I think that's on all of them, if I'm not mistaken. But I think it's the same one. I like that little subtle texture.
Was that also true here in the March of the Machine? Yeah, it was. That was already in the... Because I think there are some subtle variations from the original design that they had in the bonus sheet in March of the Machine to the way at least some of these frames were. Oh, we talked about that with the gods in Ixalan. They were
there were some changes there.
But it looks like they kept...
These look pretty similar to the same template. There might be some minor changes.
If so, they're real subtle.
But this looks real close.
They got the design really, really on point in the first place, so I guess they just didn't want to mess that up.
Yeah.
Which is fair.
Yeah.
All right, so...
Who's up next?
Standard Trostani wins. We've got Rakdos, Teysa, and Vannifar.
Let's look at Vannifar next.
All right. Let's end with Teysa because it's her set, in a sense.
Yeah.
Vannifar. Well, this is interesting because in this case, the dossier is not far from Art Deco itself.
Yeah.
Though the city version is more Art Deco.
This one's really tough. I really like all of these.
The dossier to me really looks New Capennin.
It does. I feel like there is a lot of flavor overlap in this set with New Capenna.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's just because of the sort of what am I thinking? Like the crime elements, the detectives, the investigation stuff.
They definitely should have just set the set on New Capenna.
But yeah, that one does feel like, I feel like she's going to that same, there's a couple different arts that feature, I think it's the Naya faction that's led by the cat demon, and they're usually having a party, and I feel like she's going to one of their parties. Is it the Cabaret? Right.
Yeah, it's
like she looks like she's gonna go to one of their parties in this setting, and she was not gonna look out of place at all.
Yeah, if it weren't for the blue, she would go in the Naya Commander deck
she
with
would just be
the
in
diva
there.
And the cat
she would
lady.
Just be in that faction.
100%. Yeah, with the sparkles off the glittery dress and everything, and that big bow.
Like she's ready.
Absolutely.
I like that the standard one shows that she has become an elf ooze wizard.
She was a jellyfish before, is that right?
Yeah, I think she was, I forget what she was before. But like, I like that portrayal, that we can more clearly see that. There's elements of it in the other pieces. No, I guess she wasn't.
She always has been an elf ooze wizard.
Okay.
Mandela effect.
Yeah, I just misremembered that. But
Me too.
I like how this depicts that, like the dossier effect. I see hints of it if I as I read the card. I'm like elf ooze wizard, and then I look back at the art and I see those elements.
Her left arm is sort of trans.
But like at a glance, like I don't read that.
Yeah.
This one reads more like, is this a fancy dress or is that her body? I don't know.
Yeah.
How much of that is a fancy dress versus ooze or other, accoutrement.
Yeah.
And then we have the cityscape one, which I like how they sort of play with the texture of her dress and waves. It sort of looks like she just melts into the waves.
I love this city art. I love it so much.
And I also like, I don't know, we'll have to go back and look at the other ones, but we have the Simic symbol behind her.
Yeah.
I don't remember if I wasn't looking. Do we have?
Well, behind Aurelia, she might be obscuring the fist, and there is that like starburst pattern there. Let's see. Lazav has the Demir.
Lazav has. Okay, so I guess they did go with this. All right.
Yeah, they did. They did. Okay.
Yeah, I just noticed that it's a nice include that's not overly.
Yeah.
It's not too in your face.
But it really supports Vannifar.
Yes.
No, I agree with your arguments about why the standard art perhaps should be the best here, but I still much prefer the city art. And I like them both.
That one is just so pretty. I love the city art on this one, so that's going to be my pick.
Yeah. All right. Very good.
Again, though, I think the standard is an excellent fantasy portrait
of
that
an ooze wizard.
Does a great job of portraying an elf ooze wizard.
Fair enough. All right, Rakdos.
Patron of Chaos.
Yeah.
These are all so different.
Yes, they are. And this is the only one where I feel that the city art is not even in the running.
Yeah, it's less... I don't know if it's just the head-on portrait, but it just doesn't speak to me as much as these other two.
This feels like a Tenacious D album.
Yeah, I could see that.
Whereas the standard art for this Rakdos, I very much considered for my top 5 for the set because it has such a sense of scale.
Yeah.
Like, I don't notice it at first, but I look at the main figure for a moment, and then I see these people below, and they're so small.
Yeah.
And they're having their crazy bloodlust party.
Yes.
And it's just, man, that just screams Rakdos.
Yeah, I love the sense of scale in that one. I like how we're also looking up at Rakdos in the dossier version. It's more subtle, but we're not at his... I think that's one of the things that I don't love about the cityscape one, is we're kind of on his level here. It's almost like we're looking eye to eye.
Yeah, it makes him feel not enormous.
Yeah, he's
like, enormous.
If anything, he's just like a big guy.
Yeah. He feels maybe he's 8 feet or something.
Yeah, like he's big, large, but...
But Rakdos is clearly supposed to be like 40 feet or something. Yeah. He's a building demon.
Yeah, like he's terrifying.
Yeah. And the dossier art captures that from a different angle and style. It's very comic book, but it's really who is the black and sometimes Rakdos planeswalker who he showed up back in Capenna with the the sacrifice to make a second copy of him.
Yeah.
This reminds me of some of the older variants of him.
Yeah.
Like he has one really humanoid one that was a face commander for
I'm trying to remember. Is it Obnixilas?
Yeah. Is that how you say it? I always said it was Obnixilis.
That's how I say it.
One of us is right.
I don't know how you're supposed to say it. I learned it from reading the card.
I don't know fake Latin.
Yeah, I don't know.
But he's had some real intimidating arts.
It is evocative of that.
In a good way.
Yeah, I like that.
And the narrow field of view with the fuzzy nearby hand and everything, that's pretty effective. And yeah. He feels like a New Capenna mafiosa.
I mean, and he's a demon. He's going to fit right in.
Yeah.
He's ready to go.
I guess that's me just comparing him to Obnixie again. That's it. It's Obnixie. That way
that's his new name.
We don't have to concern ourselves with that last vowel sound.
He is now Obnixie forever. You're welcome.
Yeah. But so then between these two, the dossier and the standard art, which Rakdos do you prefer?
I think I like the standard art better. I just love the sense of scale of that.
Yeah.
I like how the other one, the dossier, is a little bit more of an intimate, up close. Like, I do get the sense that, like, someone is sneaking this picture without his knowledge.
Yeah.
And I like that. But I love the sense of scale that we get from the standard version of this.
Yeah, I think it's really phenomenal specimen of this style. All right, does that leave us with just Teysa?
I think we're down to just Teysa.
Excellent. And yeah, she's the first to die in the set. She's on the key art. At least some of it. What do you think here? In the stories, they emphasize how she's, I don't know if it's right to say feeling her age, but definitely her body's not working great. She's using this cane because walking hurts. And so she's, I want to say just aging and dealing with aging, though that might be not exactly right.
Her soul is being weighed down by the gravity of Ravnica.
Yes. Yeah, sure. But I want this to convey not young and spry, certainly.
Yeah, I think, again, I love the cityscape art. I like that I can see that she's holding the cane most clearly in that one. Like, initially I didn't see the cane in the standard version because it kind of blends in with whatever's behind her.
I didn't see it until just now. Yeah. So, it looks like part of the banister.
Yeah, I kind of struggled to see that. It wasn't immediately apparent, and then in the dossier version, she's holding it, but she's not really using it. Like, it feels more like an accessory.
I can see that.
Like, and I mean, sure, maybe you're taking a break right now, but just, like, when we have these snapshots of the character, like, for what you're saying, I feel like we need to see her, like, I like that in the cityscape version, she is using it to support herself.
Yeah.
And in the dossier version, it looks more like she's holding on to it, but she's not necessarily using it for any purpose. It may be more of an accessory or symbol.
Okay.
I can't see clearly what is going on with that glass that she's holding in the dossier version.
Right. So you can zoom in
Maybe we can make that larger. What is happening there? That's an interesting...
It just looks like magic fizzy water.
Yeah, that's how they drink is it La Croix? Or
We're having so many discussions about how to pronounce words.
I don't know.
I think La Croix?
I don't know how to say it, but the fizzy water.
Is it Cajun or is it French?
Yeah, it's the fizzy water that tastes like you drowned fruit inside of it. That's what she's drinking. Yeah. This is how you consume that beverage in Ravnica. Yeah, I think for me, I like the cityscape version the best. But this one is nice too. It has some elements that I appreciate.
When I'm zooming in on this one, I like a little bit more.
Yeah.
Her sleeves here, they just looked kind of weird to me. Now that I'm zooming in, it looks like that's actually part of the cape or something. You see her actual arm underneath, and it's kind of making more visual sense to me. But it also feels surprisingly Art Deco.
Yeah, I like the light in this one that's right across her face.
What's making me summarize things as Art Deco? I think it's bold lines.
Probably. It's like more of an illustrative style.
Yeah. I'm obviously using that as shorthand for too broad a range of things, and I'm trying to figure out how to use that more clearly. I guess there's less texture within a cell.
Yeah, I think they typically tend to be flatter.
Yeah.
And this one is kind of the dossier styles, whatever these Ravnican cameras produce, is kind of somewhere between that and...
It's like a rotoscope.
Yeah, it's sort of between Art Deco and... I don't know, it's just kind of a stylized illustration style in my head. I don't know if there's really a great term for exactly what this is.
It looks like kind of past 10 to 20 years graphic novel.
Yeah. Yeah, like definitely would not look out of place at all. I think I've seen some video games, I can't think of any really great examples offhand, but that kind of tread the line between, like, we're going with kind of a stylized, illustrative style, but it's also a little bit realistic. Like, we have some elements of that. Yeah. Especially in the portraiture, not as much in the backgrounds or surrounding objects, but I also like the skulls in the Cityscape version. I like that we have the ghosts in the standard as well.
Yeah. I don't actually like the face of this closest ghost to us. I can't really fully explain. It feels very Disney's Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that's not the worst thing. I really love other parts of this, though, like the texture of her blouse and her sleeves.
The fabric texture is amazing.
Yeah, so I'm the most torn between these three of all the
I don't like today. I don't like the ghost that's the closest to the front either.
Yeah. The one kind of back to the back, he kind of has a missing jaw thing going on, which is kind of cool. I like that one.
This there's a spirit token we'll have to talk about later that really bothers me for similar reasons, but
in this set?
No, it's from an older set, and it kind of looks like it looks like a photograph of a child that was photoshopped into a spirit, and it's kind of jarring. I'll have to find it and we'll talk about it. Next but we can do a token review or something.
Yes.
I think I'm gonna choose the Cityscape version just because I love the way this looks. I like that she's using the cane. I like the way the colors look in this one, how we're blending from this kind of lighter blue-green to the darker tones.
I just cannot decide. I go back and forth between all three of them. Like the general artistry of the standard art. Again, with the exception of that foreground ghost. Everything else I really just love, but she looks a little too young. This looks like an earlier set
like some of the
incarnation
older
of her.
versions.
Right, yeah. Whereas the dossier, I think most captures what I was talking about earlier, about someone...
She does look more mature. She's kind of dealing with different things than she was in previous
Yeah, I see that more in her face and in her posture.
Yeah,
whereas
she looks tired.
She does, while still looking intimidating.
Yeah.
And like a head of a guild. Whereas in the Ravnica City art, she looks perhaps, well, not the youngest of all, but she doesn't look tired at all. She looks incredibly commanding and domineering. And again, sort of like, I know we've had 3 Teysas. Maybe this should have been middle Teysa. But I don't know, if I was going to hang one of these in the hallway, it probably would be the city version.
Yeah, if I was going to hang one on the wall, it would be the city version. But as a card, I do think these are all really good.
Yeah.
It's honestly quite hard to choose of these 3.
But we've committed to, so Cityscape it is.
I'm voting for Cityscape.
All right, done.
But they were not done.
If you're already pretty familiar with the set, you might have thought it was strange that we kept mentioning we had 6 total to go over, when there are in fact 7 cards with this art style in the set. I have a profound ability to not perceive things that are right in front of me, or even things that I'm looking for. For example, this dice box, open just like this, lost it on a bookshelf for 2-3 days straight, actively looking for it in this room. On that shelf, like second from the top. I just couldn't perceive it. By the same token, setting up the slides for this episode, went through that part of the Scryfall results multiple times, just didn't see Niv there. Even thought it was weird that Niv-Mizzet had a regular art and a dossier art, but no Ravnica City art. I don't know. Anyway, we were going to do a pickup recording session to cover Niv once I realized the error, but then we thought we have a friend who is a deeply invested Niv-Mizzet fan. So we asked James to step in and share his opinions.
Let me start with what I like. In the basic art, you've got great color theory. You have strong shadows in the foreground. These are caused from the light cascading through the glass of the Guild Pact. You've got strong plays between the reds and the oranges with that bright pink in the chest crest there towards the center of the image. And overall, it's a very imposing image. For the showcase art, you have a strong silhouette framed by the city of Ravnica. I really enjoy the fact that for the other Paruns, they kind of split the buildings by the colors, but for Niv-Mizzet, who's Wooburg now, they just went with that classic gold. I think it plays really well with the kind of sash that he has. I think it plays well with the glass of the Guild Pact silhouetted behind him. Then for the dossier, I really, really love the colors at play here. You have this bright, vibrant orange yellow behind him that for a second, if you just glance at it, you think it's fire. But as you kind of look closer, you realize that's the glass of the Guild Pact behind him. You can see the sigils of each of the guilds in the stained glass there. That, of course, is the backdrop for this incredibly vibrant and saturated red with this brilliant blue frill and chest that Niv-Mizzet is known for. What I don't like is in the base art, you have a statue. And I'm not talking about the statue in the foreground. I mean that they literally made Niv-Mizzet into a statue. Like, if you look at the art, if you look at the colors at play, they're all very muted. They're all very dull. It looks very much so like a copper statue of Niv-Mizzet that has started to weather and oxidize. It looks like where there should be blue, it is like a verdigris on a copper statue or, on a penny that you find on the ground. If you look at the showcase art, which should be the shining example of who this being is, you get real estate agent Niv-Mizzet welcoming you to his city, right? You have this very hokey pose with a slightly misshapen head, and I know that that's probably just an artistic interpretation, but the pose alone pulls me out of this. He is not imposing or powerful in that moment. He is waving the parents in at a PTA meeting. He is offering you, complimentary donuts and coffee when you enter, right? So, for me, when you get to that dossier, let's take it back. For 17,000 years, this man has done everything in his power to become the most intelligent and strongest and wisest and most patient being in Ravnica. He literally foresaw his own death and was reborn through the Guild Pact to save Ravnica and help kill Nicol Bolas. Like, let's not forget that he helped do that, right? Like, he took another god's weapon and stabbed Nicol Bolas with it. Then for that art, for Niv-Mizzet Reborn, he's bursting through the ground. For Niv-Mizzet Reborn, for Niv-Mizzet Supreme, he is gliding through the air, wings fully outstretched. You see the full breadth of his power and strength in those moments. And I just think that for Guild Pact, we deserve the same thing. I think that we deserve to see Niv-Mizzet being himself. He is roaring valiantly in this image. You see movement. You see, chaos in order, which is everything he stands for. And I think that to truly honor, the living Guild Pact of Ravnica, the art should do the same. And I think that while it's not perfect, I think that the dossier artwork for this is definitely the closest we got in this set. and I'm really happy with it. And yeah, so for me, best in show, definitely Niv-Mizzet Guildpact, the dossier version.
Thanks, James. I'm really glad we asked you to contribute. That was pretty educational for me. If you want to see more from James, he has a YouTube channel that should be going live in about 2 weeks, MTG Critical. I'll put the link in the description as soon as it is live. And with that, we truly are done.